Surveying, fires, that's caught. Randall Cobb into Chicago territory. Randall Cobb inside the 20-yard line. Randall Cobb is going to score.
Welcome, everyone, to another edition of Open Book here on Game On Wisconsin. We've got a very special episode here today. First off, welcome, Ben, Fennell. Thank you so much for joining the show. Everyone in Packers Nation obviously knows who you are and loves your film breakdowns. So we're just so appreciative and excited to have you on. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's a lot of fun to talk ball with you guys, especially guys like you that are watching the tape and pretty invested in the team. Always fun to talk some shop.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm looking forward to as well. And we also have some pretty exciting news to break. Well, we'll see if it's news depending on how things go over the next couple of hours. But the Packers have officially claimed Damon Snacks Harrison from waivers. So there's been a lot of negativity sort of saying that he might not report this, that, but just recently, about 30 minutes ago, Harrison tweeted bingo to a tweet insinuating that he had a certain short list of teams he was interested in. And it's a speculation, but it seems like the Packers were part of those teams he was looking at. So let's kick it off with Ben here. And what do you think, number one, if he'll show up, and if he does, what do you think that could mean for this defense?
Yeah, I think he will show up. I don't see what the incentive to not be. If that was the case, might as well put his name on the retirement list and take his make his agent take his name out of rotation here. So I think he'll show up. Now the question is, what type of contributions will he provide, and what type of contributions are the Packers looking for? Obviously, one game left in the regular season, but primarily into the playoffs. So we know what he is at this point in his career, being a 32-year-old run-stuffing nose tackle. Bit of a limited situational player. I don't expect to see him on third downs or any sort of sub-package units. But if you look at the roles that Tyler Lancaster plays, guys like Brian Price that we signed off the street for his second run in Green Bay this past week, he played 7-9 snaps against the Titans. It's those types of roles that I would envision for Snacks Harrison. But limited player, not going to play special teams, veteran money, and his age. A lot of those things don't bode well for this style of player, but you're looking for a veteran presence that doesn't need to practice much, can come right in and contribute in those handful of snaps at nose tackle or one tech. I think he can do it. Now let's just see if the marriage is a good fit.
Yeah, and Zach, what do you make of this potential addition to the defensive line?
Well, I think Ben kind of pointed to it. I mean, a lot of people, like just in the past half hour, like I've been looking on Twitter and stuff, everyone's pointing to Howard Green. They're making the Howard Green comparisons, and I get it. Everyone's excited. I mean, the Packers, they had interest in him in the offseason. They brought him, or they tried to sign him off the Seahawks practice squad before they promoted him to the roster. So there's been that interest for a while, and Packers fans, they've been kind of dying for this reinforcement, in the defensive line, just because of seeing what happened in January in the NFC, in the NFC Championship. They need that fortified run defense. But I mean, you look at this defensive line and just this pass rush in general. I mean, they have 19 sacks in their last 20 quarters of football.
Wow.
So yeah, they've kind of put it together. So I think even if they didn't go out and get Snacks Harrison, I feel like my opinion wouldn't have been changed. And even after they got him, my opinion still hasn't really changed, but it helps still having that presence. It helps still having that veteran guy who, like Ben said, can come in and give you those snaps. He's that veteran guy who doesn't need to practice. He doesn't need to master any kind of role. He doesn't need to really learn any type of scheme or anything like that. He can just come in and give you those snaps. So I don't think he's going to come in and play some kind of huge role, but still, it helps having him in the room.
Yeah, I almost think of Ryan Pickett when I think of him. Just a big man. Put him at nose tackle and maybe just blow up some run plays. A combination of him and Kenny Clark. And again, Harrison is aging. We can't expect the explosion he used to have back in New York, but still a potential upgrade over what else we have along the line. And just a quick note on how he's performed this year. Zach Cruz obviously covers the Packers, does a great job. He just tweeted, according to PFF, Damon Harrison has a 81.7 grade against the run this year. He's played 138 total snaps. including 61 against the run. So that's not a bad grade. That's pretty impressive for someone at his age and playing limited snaps, probably not getting in much of a rhythm.
I don't put too much stock in Pro Football Focus grades, but at the same time, there's some merit there. I mean, it's pretty impressive a little bit. I'm not gonna lie.
Definitely. So that's the breaking news, and I'm sure we'll discuss it a bit more throughout the show. But first off, Lambeau LeBeau is obviously starstruck here by Ben's presence. So Ben, before we get into Sunday night's game and film breakdown and next week, we would love to just hear a little bit of background on yourself and how you got into the NFL world and breaking down film the way you do, and you do it so excellently. I'm sure everyone would love to hear about that.
Yeah, well, I've been in this world of film breakdowns for about 12 years now. I started over at NFL Films, working on the show Playbook on NFL Network for about 5-6 years with our good buddies Sterling Sharp and Brian Baldinger and Theismann. And, that's really where I kind of had a bunch of people take me under their arms in the TV world, the production world, and the football world. So it was great to understand how to package content for viewer, digestion, and how to kind of make this new fad of all 22 interest, digestible for fans, whether on TV or social media. And I didn't play in college. I didn't play at a high level. So it was great to learn film study from, the Mike Mayocks and Matt Millens and those types of guys that are willing to show you what they've learned and really pass on that knowledge. And one thing leads to another, and I take a job with ESPN. I go out to college games each weekend and work on some of the live production, doing similar stuff, X's and O's in the truck in a live capacity. And that obviously then snowballed into my athletic coverage and doing Packers film breakdowns. And now since this athletic and ESPN, I now go over to NFL Films in the off season to do all the off season stuff, the Senior Bowl, the Combine, the draft. But long story short, it's all film breakdown, all 22 X's and O's type of content, which has really taken off over the last 5 years. I remember when I first started at Playbook, there was this kind of weird side eye to all 22 content that this isn't really what fans like. And it's seemingly absolutely blown up over the last 4 or 5 years. And now it's this resurgence where they want more and more of it. So it's kind of sad that, the NFL Network doesn't have a show dedicated to X's and O's at the moment. There is no Playbook anymore. But hopefully that changes down the road, and maybe we see our own Baldy breakdown type of show on TV.
Yeah, I loved Playbook with Sterling Sharp and watching that show. And yeah, I always found it interesting to break down a play within the play and really show why it worked and how it worked. And that's awesome that you got to work with such amazing players and sports personalities and all that. And I mean, to be honest, Ben, when I first made a Twitter account and was trying to get into, covering the Packers, that, your work was a real inspiration for me to dive into all 22 film. And I just really appreciate it because you really made the path like that someone can follow. So I really appreciate that.
Well, this all started back in Playbook. We would do this much research, and I'm kind of spreading my hands out for the guys not watching, but only using about 10% of it on the show. So I made a Twitter account and just started sharing some of the things that weren't making the show. And that was in about 2012 or 13 at this point. Yeah. And I really feel like I was one of the godfathers of showing all 22 clips. This was before Game Pass was there and before all 22 was available to the public. But the interesting thing about film study is you have to surround yourself with people that are smarter than you. It's nothing you can just close the door with all the resources and come out an expert. You do not know what you don't know. And you have to be willing to listen to other people and hear different perspectives. And there's 22 moving parts, and you may have 22 different perspectives on the play. And I think that's just such a fascinating kind of niche and industry that you can see something one way and talk to somebody else and they could show it to you completely different. And I just think it's one of these niches that so many people like spending time by themselves, but don't be afraid to surround yourself with other people, hear other opinions, other perspectives, because there's a lot going on given plays and you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, that's totally true. I mean, that's like kind of like your breakdowns were the whole reason I initially signed up for The Athletic. When I saw you were moving those film breakdowns to The Athletic, that's the whole reason I signed up, because I wanted to pretty much learn. Like I watch after every week, after every game, I when the tape comes out, usually what is it, like Monday evening, pretty much. That's usually when I watch the coach's film and to prepare for this show, pretty much. But I feel like I don't really know enough or understand enough to really, post that type of stuff on Twitter to like you, Dusty, Eli, those types of guys. But when I follow you guys, I learn those types of things. I kind of like, I understand more. So really you and all those guys, like, I applaud you guys really for helping people like me, everyone else on Packers Twitter, really for just helping everyone understand kind of like the schematic things behind why things happen, behind a certain play. Because really, yeah, without you guys, it's just people would just be running around in circles with their heads cut off. Nobody really know anything.
Well, there's a lot to explain. It's exciting and interesting, and just understanding how detailed this game is from a positional level, from a conceptual level, a schematic level, from a big picture level. There's so many different layers to this game. And if you get people that know what they're talking about, it's a really good conversation. And it's so nuanced and so detailed, yet so simple in the same sense. And it can be learned. It can be explained. And if anyone ever says it's too complicated, you're the wrong teacher, or you got the wrong people around you. This game can be taught. But you got to have the right people around you, and you have to be willing to absorb the things you don't know as well.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine just for you, watching the Packers offense of old with Mike McCarthy compared to what it has been the last 2 years, especially this year with Matt LaFleur, I mean, there must be so much more detail per play, I would imagine, for you to look at, because we knew what McCarthy's offense was, slinging it down the field, Rodgers, make magic almost out of nothing. But now it's really scheme, as talented as Rodgers is and Devontae is and Aaron Jones is and as good as the offensive line is, so much of it is based off scheme. So I can only imagine that is even more exciting for you to break down, because it's not just, hey, here's Aaron Rodgers making an absurd throw on 4 verticals that, anyone can run. Now we're seeing a lot of creativity, and I bet that just makes it a lot more fun for you to break down.
Well, for the middle of the 2010s, it felt like it was just like pulling teeth to get explosive plays, to pull the ball down the field. But Aaron Rodgers earned the right to play with that style. He blessed us for years with plays improvisationally, out of structure, letting plays break down, that backyard football. And the results were great, and nobody really cared about the process. But suddenly the results weren't turning up the last couple of years, and we had to start looking at the process. And as he got older and started to rely on out of structure, you started to say, why is he not taking this first initial read? Why is he leaving a clean pocket? Why is he holding onto the ball so long? You started to look at the process of it all because the results weren't producing. And I think that's such an interesting conversation, because he blessed us for so long. And I love to see the very simple argument of, hey, it's 3rd and 5. It's slant flat. The slant is wide open. The defender falls down. The quarterback doesn't throw it. He scrambles around, picks up 6 yards with his feet. Does he get a positive or a negative grade? And in my opinion, he gets a negative grade every day of the week. That is not his job to run around. It's your job to make the right read, the right decision, and be a distributor first and foremost. And I think we got away from that with Aaron Rodgers. We weren't evaluating him and what he's asked to do on a down-to-down basis. And that's my tongue-in-cheek comment. Aaron Rodgers highlights are from the pocket, because that's what I mean is play more within structure. You have the God-given right arm, the best right arm on the planet. Use it within structure. And that's what's different about 2020 Packers is he's playing within structure of the offense and using all those schematic elements to make it a quarterback-friendly system. The RPOs, the motions, the shifts, the bunches, the commitment to the run game, the moving the launch point through, conceptual concepts, and all those things that make the offense and the quarterback's life easier. It's like, why not do that? Why put so much pressure on Aaron Rodgers to be a superhero? We can win when it's Clark Kent. We don't need Superman to show up every Sunday. And that should be refreshing to Packers fans.
It's been really, really refreshing, at least for me. But Zach, I mean, I know you've also talked a lot about LaFleur just making it easier for Rodgers. And I know it's funny to say easier for one of the all-time greats, but there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with making an offense easier for anyone. You see Tom Brady and Drew Brees, I mean, he was in New England, run extremely efficient, offenses that were based out of the pocket, taking what the defense gives you and not always looking for the big play and then eventually having to scramble or taking a sack or throwing it away. So I think that's made a big difference. But yeah,
well, real quick, I feel like throughout the 2000s and early 2010s, if you had a well-designed system, it came at the expense of negative narratives about the players. It was, oh, that's a college system. Oh, what's the quarterback being asked to do? Peyton Manning set this God-given precedent that you need to have this cerebral field general at quarterback. And that's what everybody looked for 10 years after Peyton Manning. And it's like, if the system is making the quarterback's job easier, why is that a bad thing? It should make his life easier. And I think we're seeing that now over the last 5 years in this influx of, for lack of a better word, scheme winning as opposed to players winning, whether that's Shanahan or LaFleur or Cliff Kingsbury bringing air raid or, McVay and all those types of schemes that are perceivingly winning. I think that's an exciting proposition to have coaches helping the players out and coaches adapting to the talent they get. And they're not so rigid to say, this is my system. Everyone has to fit into these roles. Yeah. No, let's see what the players do well and don't do well and adjust your system to that. That dominated the 90s in the NFL. And nowadays, offenses are so much more fluid to adjust to what we have in the skill sets of the players in the locker room rather than forcing round pegs through square holes,
Yeah.
And I think the offense that they're playing with right now, how they're running it, it's ideal. It's perfect for a guy who's 37 or just turned 37. You don't want him to be that aforementioned Superman, because that's probably going to end up bad. That's probably going to end up in negative plays. It's probably going to end up in turnovers. Aaron Rodgers, he can still make the crazy throws. He can still make the accurate throws. He can still do stuff like that. But why put that pressure on him when Matt LaFleur, he's this innovative offensive. I don't want to call him a guru or anything, but he's creating these play designs that are just scheming guys into open space. Like we talked about before, like the Patriots, where Tom Brady, he didn't need to do anything. He didn't need to play outside of what the Patriots were doing on offense. He was just able to drop back and hit guys straight out of his drop. 2-3 step drop, find wide open guys. He would find his running backs. Like the running backs in New England the last 10 years, that was such a huge, significant part of what they were doing offensively.
Outside of Randy Moss, deep. Yeah, outside of Randy Moss, I would say, James White, Rex Burkhead, Danny Woodhead, those were probably some of the most valuable pieces of those Patriots Super Bowl teams because Brady was willing to take those check down throws when in McCarthy's system, either Rodgers wasn't willing to, or also they weren't always there for him because McCarthy was just scheming it up differently. But just like last week, we broke down a play. I believe it was the Allen Lazard catch for about 24 yards. And I highlighted about 15 yards of separation. There wasn't another player on the screen in the all-22 film. So, there's nothing wrong with working off your scheme. And I just love the fact that LaFleur's been doing that. And now getting into what was, coming into maybe the biggest game of the NFL season, or at least this late, which was Packers-Titans. And I'd be lying. In my wildest dreams, I don't think I could have imagined that outcome. So we obviously have to talk about that game. And I guess, Ben, let's start with, the number one key to stopping the Titans obviously starts with Derrick Henry. And keeping him, yes, it was 98 yards, but that broke a streak of 10 straight road games with 100-plus yards. His longest rush of the game was 10 yards. That is very impressive at any point against Derrick Henry. So, Ben, what did you see out of the defense this week specifically that really made Henry a much less factor than he is on a week-to-week basis?
Well, you had to do what you could to tie one of their hands behind their back and make them one-dimensional. And the same thing goes for the Packers. People said, how do you stop the Packers? Tie one of their hands behind their back. Stop the run. Either of these teams run the ball effectively on first, second down, it's over for you because then everything's open. The whole playbook is open. The defense is playing reactive. It's just way too tough to play these well-balanced offenses when the run game is clicking on early downs. And I saw a Packers team willing to beef up their personnel to counter the heavy personnel of the Titans. Something Pettine has been a little reluctant to do over the years, but this year he's been much more willing to be heavy against heavy. And they stopped the run. They played a lot of single high, got +1 into the box. They had 12 carries for 44 yards and only one run over 10 yards in the first half, in combination with that one big turnover that led to a short field and 3 straight touchdown drives from the offense. It's a combination thing as well. The defense is playing great, but it's a 3-0 game. It's a much different tone. Defense playing great with some points to support them on the scoreboard. Now the Titans are out of their game. They had to kind of ditch the run game slightly in the third, fourth quarter, go to their true drop back pass game, which that's the last thing the Tennessee Titans want to do. They do not want to play from behind. They're not built to play from behind. They're not built for the straight drop back pass game. And that's what you have to do to these teams, whether it's the Titans, the Browns, the Niners, the Packers, these run-based offenses, the Ravens, tie one of their hands behind their back, get ahead on the scoreboard, and then go hunt quarterbacks. And that was kind of the recipe from first half to second half.
Yeah, I mean, real quick, I was going to get to this a little bit later, but now that you mentioned it, I'm just going to throw up a quick about 50-second montage of the way the Packers attacked Derrick Henry with these 5-man fronts. I think every single play outside of one I'm about to feature was a 5-man front, and all of these runs were for 3 yards or less and just very impressive. So let's cue this up here and just watch 5-man front. And this is the first play of the game for the Titans.
Yep, great edge set there by Preston Smith. All these 5-man fronts are their base defense personnel. So you see the 3 interior defensive tackles with the wide edges trying to box in the run. Again, Rashawn Gary setting a good edge and working back down underneath on the tight end there. Rashawn Gary cannot be blocked by a tight end. He's going to win most of those. No. Again, Preston Smith, physical edge there against tight end. And that's really the formula there. Set that edge and have guys chase from the backside, get hats to the ball carrier, especially Derrick Henry. Last thing you want to do is be put on one of his highlights.
Yeah, I mean, you saw the only 4-man front, except for actually, no, I think this may be the only 4-man front.
That was a 4-man front there as the Titans were in 11 personnel. So they went to their nickel package there. So they're trying to lighten up the Packers as well, maybe trying to get an extra running lane or a lighter box. That's the whole cat and mouse of the personnel game. You know, you try to go lighter personnel, 11, 3 receivers, get the defense to be lighter. Maybe there's some more open lanes. And then in combination, you try to beef up your personnel on offense, maybe catch the defense small. But Pettin was willing, like you said, to go to those 5-man fronts and the base personnel to really stop the run first and foremost.
Yeah, and me and Zach talked about it last week, kind of doing almost what the Browns did, basically, to the Titans a few weeks ago, which is score a ton of points early and basically neutralize Derrick Henry. And that's what we saw, Zach. So, yeah,
that was my key to the game. Your offense is being your best defense because, like Ben said, that's pretty much takes away the threat of the run. It takes away the threat of play action, which was the Titans' probably their biggest strength aside from Derrick Henry coming into the game. And I think, you said their biggest run in the first half was 10 yards. I think that came right after the 2-minute warning. I mean, before that, their longest run was like 5 yards. So, you set the tone, and that first play of the game with Preston Smith, that set the tone right there. Like, we're not gonna let you run all over us. We're not gonna let you dominate us like you've done in your last however many games. That was huge. And 48 of his 98 yards came like after the Packers were already up 33-14. So it was like a quiet 98-yard performance, which against any other running back, maybe, not the best, but it's Derrick Henry. So, I mean, you'll take that any day of the week,
Yeah, no question. And really quick, Eli, I just wanted to say, I feel like as much as they played well, I felt like it was a very fair expectation game from the defense in the formula of the defense. I find Packers fan base, the expectations of the defense are brutal.
Yeah.
But I got news for you. It's tough to play defense in 2020 NFL. The expectations do not match the actual ability. Yeah. But this is what it means to be a good defense in the NFL. Just like Mina Kimes said today, be good enough. Yeah. And I would challenge people to say, who played corner in the Super Bowl last year for the Chiefs or the Niners? Outside of Richard Sherman, there's not a lot of household names out there. Nope. Light up the scoreboard and play good enough on defense. Don't be a sieve. Don't let up the big plays over your head. Don't miss tackles. Get the occasional splash play, maybe that turnover. Stop the run. Make them go long drives. And I thought on Sunday, it was that formula. stop the run, maybe get that splash play, make them go 10, 12 plays to get points, which they did on occasion. But at the end of the day, good enough is okay. If you win the game 45-31, a win is a win is a win. I think the expectations for our defense and defenses in general to be dominant in 2020 NFL is not realistic.
Yeah, I agree. And also, I mean, we've been saying this for years, at least when it comes to having Aaron Rodgers. The Packers never needed an elite defense. Just don't be awful. Don't be the reason we're going to lose. Don't be the biggest liability. And now, I mean, I don't know who said it, but I believe the Packers are currently the 7th overall defense in the NFL. Aaron Rodgers has had one top 5 defense, 2010, won a Super Bowl, and I believe 2009 he might have had a top 10. That was, his first trip to the playoffs. But we know that if this Packers defense is just good enough, like you said, it's going to be good. But real quick, I got to jump into these comments here because we got another pin on our map, Zach, coming in from Ireland. Sean Paul Gorman, we appreciate you. I mean, I don't know what time it is in Ireland now. I would have to imagine it's pretty late, but we really appreciate you tuning in.
The map is going up eventually. It'll be up on the wall soon.
Yeah, we're going to get that. We're going to get that open book map going. And then to stick with a couple more fan questions, just because we got a ton coming in. Ben, first off, I mean, you've definitely seemed to know your way around. I mean, I don't know enough about golf to even finish that sentence, but I see a lot of your golfing posts and stuff like that. So I guess you must be how long you've been playing golf and stuff like that.
Yeah, I grew up on a golf course back home in the Poconos in Northeast Pennsylvania. Tried to play at Drexel University, quickly learned what Division I golf was all about. Not quite good enough. But life's all about balance, so it's work hard, play hard, a lot of football for 10 months out of the year. But May and June, I'm down the street here at Little Mill Country Club in Medford, New Jersey, working on my tour card. Best golf, about 7-8 handicap. Having not played, I'll scrap together a 13, 14. I just want to go out and break 80 every day. That's all I'm trying to do. But I had a chance to work the British Open last year at Royal Portrush in Northern Ireland. So tying together all our comments here.
Ireland,
it was a lot of fun to go out there.
Yeah, that's awesome. Ireland has always been a place. Ireland, Scotland, anywhere where that they're, making a ton of like alcohol, scotch, whatever you got going, you're distilling it. That's where I want to go visit. But I mean, during COVID, I feel like golf picked up a lot for some reason amongst everyone.
One of the safest places to be,
Yeah. So I tried it, and I'm more than willing to admit it was comical, my attempts at golf. And I'm pretty sure I tore both of my rotator cuffs, but I'm just going to ignore that.
It's golf, not baseball, Eli.
I know, but
if you're swinging 100%, you have the wrong club. All right, you got to remember that next time. 100%, you have the wrong club.
Well, I'll know that for next summer. Hopefully, my shoulders will get back to 100% by then. But getting back to this game, so we just talked about the defense. Now let's talk a little bit about the offense. And, I mean, it's kind of hard. I don't know where to start between Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams, Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon. But let's start with A.J. Dillon because, we weren't sure what exactly to expect out of him as the number 2 back in this offense. And it turns out for Sunday night, at least, he was the number 1. He had, 21 carries. Aaron Jones had 10 carries. So, Zach, looking at A.J. Dillon in his first real work in this offense, how impressed were you? Do you think it was him? Do you think it was maybe a struggling Titans defense? What did you see out of Dillon that you think we could bring into the playoffs?
I mean, I think you can take multiple variables into the equation. I mean, it's not the best defense, but at the same time, they're still full-grown NFL players. It's still professional defense. So when he's running full-grown, guys over like number 92 on the defense,
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Yeah, I know you got that clip pulled up. Yeah. Then you got to take some of those things into account. I mean, he had coming into the game 115 career rushing yards, and he finished with a 124. So I mean, it was environments, conditions like that, those suboptimal temperatures. That's what they drafted him for. Yeah. I don't know if he's going to be the running back of the future. I don't know if he's going to be the starter next year. Whatever happens with Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams, that's a totally different conversation. But when they spent that second round pick on him, I think they were envisioning these December, January games when the temperature starts dropping. Nobody wants to tackle him. Gives Matt LaFleur someone like he had in Derrick Henry, a guy that's just going to run through guys' faces. And that's what he did against the Titans. Like this is exactly what they were imagining, and that's what he did.
Yeah, I mean, so let's just jump right now into that second touchdown run by Dylan, because I honestly can't contain my excitement over watching it for the 500th time over the last 48 hours. But I mean, right here, it'll slow it down in a minute. But number 92 just motioned over the center. This guy, he's got to take a real hiatus from all social media. He might want to get a bunker somewhere and just hide, because he's going to feel this for at least a week. I mean, he didn't even need the stiff arm, Dylan. Derrick Henry's famous for the stiff arm. Dylan just lowered that shoulder and put a 300-pound nose tackle into the dirt like it was nothing. And that's exactly what Matt LaFleur envisioned when drafting him. And I guess, not to get too deep into it because there's so much speculation and there's no way of knowing for sure. But Ben, how do you see the most realistic running back for the Packers next year? I mean, do you think it could be A.J. Dillon and a couple of rookies, or they bring back Jones or Williams? What do you think is the best chance of that running back group looking like?
I'd be shocked if they didn't find a way to bring Aaron Jones back and work something out to keep him in the offense. And it's going to be a run-committed offense from here on out. So having a stable of backs is important. Having that two-way tight end to replace Mercedes Lewis is important. Those kind of staple cornerstone positions of LaFleur's scheme are going to be important to constantly fill. Matt Dickerson, unfortunately, is a 290-pound defensive end out of UCLA. Poor guy playing nose tackle there. But it is what it is. You get shifted inside and nose to one tech instead of three tech, and next thing you know, you're getting trucked. But A.J. Dillon is just interesting because without the true training camp, without joint practices, without the preseason, the running back position is tough to get a rhythm, a feel, a flow for the timing coming cold off the bench for 3 snaps and out or 5 carries in a game. You need a full workload to figure out and get that feel for the rhythm of the game. Typically, rookies get that in preseason 3 or entire game of preseason 4 to to shake off the cobwebs and get up to NFL speed and get a feel for the timing of blocking and to get into the flow of the game. This was the first time he's ever had extended duty to do that. It was really tough to evaluate him up to this point. Literally up to week 16 in his rookie year, I didn't know if A.J. Dillon was good or not. You can't evaluate running backs in spot duty. It's not fair. And that's really not the nature of the position. So it was just refreshing to see him in extended action, to get 20-plus carries, and to have a strong volume of work to finally evaluate this kid.
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised to hear you say that you think they're going to work out Aaron Jones, because it seems like the opposite from social media, especially after Dillon's performance. It's like, it seems like there's no way they could work Jones back into this offense. I've always been on the train that paying running backs, as we saw with Christian McCaffrey, Ezekiel Elliott, Joe Mixon, a lot of guys that didn't pan out. But I love Aaron Jones. I think he's a special player. He's dynamic in ways that A.J. Dillon and Jamal Williams aren't. So I would love for you to be correct in that hope of him returning. But now moving on to another offensive star for the Packers. I mean, I don't even know how to praise Devontae Adams enough for the season we're seeing out of him. Missing 2.5 games, he still became just the 3rd player in NFL history to have 100 receptions and 16 touchdowns in a single season. He is the 2nd player, along with Randy Moss, to have 7 100-yard games and 100 receptions, I believe, in the same season. And even more crazy, he himself has more receiving touchdowns than 5 other NFL teams. The Patriots, the Jets, the Giants, I believe the Washington football team, and one more. But, I mean, he has more receiving touchdowns than full teams combined. Zach, I mean, is there any way, we've seen a lot of good receivers, and I know we're going to get a comment from Jen in a minute about Jordy, but come on, have we seen anything like this, at least in our lifetime, of just pure dominance?
I personally haven't, and this is coming from a guy who spent a very. What was that?
I was going to say Greg Jennings is probably what you're about to say.
Okay, all right. So you know me well enough at this point. This is coming from a guy who has willingly defended Greg Jennings on social media as being, the best receiver that Aaron Rodgers has ever played with. I think, I am well above the point of moving Devontae Adams into that top spot. I think just the things that they have done. I mean, they've moved into that point where they're that unspoken communication thing that him and Jordy Nelson had mastered. So when you combine Devontae Adams, his route techniques, his release, everything, just the total package, combined with that nonverbal communication, everything, then it's unstoppable. I mean, when they had that double team in the end zone on his third touchdown, I believe it was his third, and he broke off those two guys and he was just wide open. Yeah. I mean, that was ridiculous.
Yeah, so I was actually wanted to jump into that right now because you bring it up, and Rodgers mentioned, I don't know if it was on the McAfee show, I think it was, that that unspoken connection where kind of like Jordy, where it's just we don't need to say it, we know what we're going to do together. So here it is. Here's the play. We'll play it fast, and then we'll slow it down for you. But just looking at this right here, here he is lined up. Looks like one-on-one, but you see that safety at the top of the screen. They're going to double him. I mean, he's stuck. And just to cut in the snow with such sharpness is just incredible on its own. The slippery, both of those guys went sliding out of the back of the end zone. Devontae Adams is 5 yards back in the middle of the end zone, catching that touchdown. So to slow that down a bit, Rodgers said that this play was meant for Mercedes Lewis. And you see Lewis at the top of the screen. It's not very open. Rodgers is looking for other options. In the meantime, right here, boom, Devontae, he's double teamed. Like, what are you going to do? He was supposed to run a deep over on the sideline. And that nonverbal, you just knowing each other, the mind meld, Devontae cuts off his route, breaks it back, touchdown. I mean, when you have that kind of connection, it's just unstoppable.
It's so damn hard to play a defensive back in the NFL. Not even just against Devontae Adams, just to get in general. That's just ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, what they're doing together on the field is phenomenal. And before we get to our last film breakdown play, I feel like we have to talk for a minute about Darnell Savage and Adrian Amos. I believe since week 11, they're the two highest graded safeties according to PFF. Darnell Savage is giving up an absurd 2.3 passer rating when targeted, 4 interceptions since week 10, 6 pass breakups. I believe there's only been 3 out of 15 completions when targeted. So, Ben, when you watch Amos and Savage and the way they've really picked up these last few weeks, could we be looking at maybe the best safety duo in the league, or for sure maybe top 3 as Savage continues to grow in this defense?
Well, it's certainly trending that way. And really quick, before we put Devontae to bed for a second here, he's obviously putting up ridiculous production, but it's how he's doing it on a week-to-week basis. He's literally hitting the receiver equivalent of the cycle.
Yeah.
And I think 4 or 5 games this year. I noted it in week 1, but then he did it against Houston, did it again against San Francisco, and this past week against Tennessee was pretty close in that he wins on both sides of the formation, lined up everywhere in the formation. So outside the numbers, number 3 in trips, winning from the slot, winning on every level of the defense. So the quick game stuff, intermediate, down the field, the yards after catch stuff, and the RPO game we saw. He scored a touchdown in the red zone last week, obviously winning in the red zone. Literally every facet of receiver play, he seems to be checking off each week. And there are some other elite receivers around the NFL, DeAndre Hopkins in particular. You know where he's lined up 99% of his snaps this year? As the left outside receiver in that offense. That's what the air raid does. They don't move guys around. So it's interesting to see how he does it and how diverse he does it on a week-to-week basis. But flipping over to the safety tandem, Amos, Savage, just refreshing to see Savage playing faster, like LaFleur had said, trusting his eyes finally. But I think how they're using him is putting him in a better position to be successful. And even at Maryland, he wasn't used as a man coverage guy very often. And he wasn't a back end player very often. He was rolled down into the box, shooting passing lanes, shooting gaps in the run game, being a blitzer, using that quick-footed, explosive speed to disrupt. And I think in the NFL now, we obviously saw some issues with tackling on the back end. Yeah. But it was just a little bit of slow blinking on the back end. He looked like he was second-guessing what he was seeing, second-guessing the reads and kind of the angles taking when reading the quarterback in zone coverage, whether center field or half field. So I think this new robber role, blitzing role, gives him a much more defined, segmented role in the defense. It's not as much thinking. He could play faster. And I think we're seeing that now in the results and the production.
Yeah, I mean, real quick to go back to Devontae. Sorry, Zach. Just one more thing that I saw. I think it was Next Gen Stats said that Devontae Adams has the most touchdowns in the NFL out of different routes, whether it's a corner route, a post route, a go route, a flat route, a screen route. He's doing it in every possible way. You know, this isn't, you know, no discredit to, like you said, Hopkins or DK Metcalf, but this isn't just go straight, you're a huge person, jump up and catch the ball. Devontae is so creative in what he does, and it's just amazing to watch. But yeah, Zach, go ahead with your thoughts on the safeties, I assume.
Well, on Adams though too, and on that play down the left sideline in the fourth quarter, Rodgers put it up to him. Like that was great coverage by Malcolm Butler. Like he was on him, you know, like he was on him, and Adams still managed to make that catch. That was the go. I think it was like against cover zero, so they were all playing man to man. And he still just came down with it. It was great coverage. So even when he does just run straight, just go.
Yeah.
It's just still, I
mean, Rodgers said, that catch would be impressive in September. Doing that in December in the snow is just absolutely, it's incredible. I mean,
let's tie together the 2 points for a second here. First, just a quick thought. What do we need to tell Packers fans about Devontae Adams and his trajectory as a NFL player versus the expectations of Rashawn Gary's and Darnell Savage's? Do we all remember Devontae's first year and a half? I would love to go back through the Twitterverse and see some of the cut this guy can't play type of tweets, and that we so quickly want to anoint, crown, or kind of hate these, these rookies, these first round picks, these second round picks, because some guys across the league have stepped right in and produced, and it sets a dangerous precedent. But not everybody does. And some, there's a learning curve. Some need to develop. Some have things going on off the field and just becoming a professional and a member of society. You forget they're 21, 22-year-old, young adults going through life.
Yeah.
And some guys are just a little behind the eight ball for whatever reason, whether it's confidence or ability or strength. And Devontae was one of them. And to see him come into this all-pro ability should let all Packers fans know, hey, you know what? A little patience goes a long way.
Yeah, Gary's a perfect example of that for right now. But go ahead, Zach.
No, that's well said. I mean, there's this connotation attached to, being like, if you're a first round pick, you come in and you immediately produce. You're immediately going to step in like it's Madden. You get plugged in and you're immediately going to that's it.
Yeah.
You got to be good right off the bat. And I got the screenshots. I got the screenshots of everybody saying Jeff Janis needs
the receipts.
Yeah, I got the receipts. But back to Darnell Savage, like you said, at Maryland, he was playing in the box. He was close to the line of scrimmage, playing kind of more in the teeth of the defense, where he was able. And the Packers, they've kind of used him kind of here and there throughout the season. And I've been one of the people. Ross Uglum has been one of the people who've kind of been preaching for the Packers, kind of use him more so there. Kind of more so in the box. Get him closer where he can play. Play more on the ball. But the way he's been, kind of like more as a deep safety, like you said, in that robber role, where he's been able to kind of just hone in on the ball. And like Matt LaFleur said, and I noted in my story earlier this week, he's been able to trust his eyes. And that play where he dropped what would have been his second interception against Titans, that was all him trusting his eyes and using that closing speed. If he just hung on to that was going to be a pick six.
Yeah, that would have been the dagger.
I got news for you. He's 5'10", 200 pounds, and runs high 4.3s, low 4.4s. If he could catch consistently, he'd be playing slot for somebody.
Yeah. I guess you could say the same about Jair Alexander, because look, we all know how great he is, but if he can just lock down catching the ball, I think he will be eventually the unquestioned top cover corner in the NFL.
Now, he's such an interesting study because he's one of the best cover corners in the NFL, but we don't ask him to play a whole lot of press man like the other top cover corners around the league. We're a pretty heavy zone-based team. Obviously, our zone pressures are one of our dominant kind of third and medium, third and long calls. So he's sitting there while he is on islands quite often. It's a lot of off coverage, a lot of quarters that eventually turns the man. But we don't see him in that press man too often. I kind of wish they would just let him bump and run just a little bit more.
Yeah, he does seem to play pretty far off the line of scrimmage most of the time. But real quick, because this is something I was discussing, and this is really interesting to me. Lambeau LeBeau, number one, thank you for always tuning in. We really appreciate it. But this is interesting because I don't think anyone can disagree that probably the first 6 to 8, 9 weeks of the year, everyone in Packerland wanted Mike Pettine's head on a stick. And now the last 6, 7 weeks, this defense has had a pretty dramatic turn in its sack ratio and getting turnovers and all that. So I'm not going to sit here and talk about, winning a Super Bowl now, but depending on how the season ends, Ben, do you think Mike Pettine has secured himself safe to another year as a defensive coordinator here in Green Bay, or he still has more to prove?
I think he retains his job. I see an improved unit from last year collectively, at least schematic wise. The one-on-one pass rushes weren't winning as much earlier in the year, but they were as dominant as anybody in the NFL last year. Yeah. They earned the right to rush one-on-one in 2020. And then it wasn't producing. So we had to make some changes. We started blitzing more. But to all the fans that are frustrated with Pettine on Sundays, you have to ask yourself, what do you want him to do? Because every scheme has pros and cons. And I promise you, if there was a defense that covered everything, everybody would play it. So while some fans are a little bit frustrated with the loose zone coverage, the off coverage aspect, the zone pressures, there's pros and cons. If you want them up on the line of scrimmage pressing, I got news for you. There's pros and cons of that too. And I could find you vulnerabilities to play press man as well. And then when we get beat playing press man, like we did with Dom Capers all those years and the ball went over our heads, we were saying, what's going on? We need to get back. So, it's a constant, Rolodex of wanting what the offense is doing kind of thing. It's the offense is doing this. Why aren't we doing that? You don't get to choose after the play. Yeah. So a lot of times on these third mediums, third and longs, say what you want before the play and see what happens kind of thing. And I think it's interesting and it's frustrating on Sundays at times to see them give up those completions on third down quite often. But when you go back and look, they get off the field and they produce 3 and outs. And they're actually one of the best defenses on third and long in the NFL. They're preventing the big plays, which plagued us under Dom Capers for years and years and years with coverage busts and confusions and the ball going over her head. So what are they doing? Preventing the big plays, forcing the long drives, buckling down in the red zone, and hopefully getting that impact play or two, whether, sacking the quarterback or a turnover.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to mention, is that as annoying as a lot of Packer fans will go on Twitter and say, oh, we're playing so far back. But you know what? If you have a lead, let them dink and dunk for 8.5 minutes. And then you know what? You want to lock down in the red zone, of course. But even if you give up a touchdown, if you have a multi-score lead and you're making teams spend 6 to 8 minutes per drive to score, that's a win. Because at the end of the day, you're going to get the ball back in Rodgers' hands. You're going to expect him to, at the very least, move the ball, take time off the clock, hopefully put up points. And in those situations, if you're playing press coverage and all of a sudden you get beat over the top, you have a score in maybe 30 seconds, and it's a totally different game as opposed to allowing the other team to waste so much time.
And there's other defenses around the league playing the same scheme, but nobody seems to be mad at them. The Steelers play the same scheme. The Bucs play the same scheme. Third and medium, it's zone pressure. You're trying to attack the quarterback, play loose coverage, force the ball out, and make the tackle. Third and long, you're keeping it in front of you and trying to rally. So occasionally on 3rd and 15, does that rally come at 12 yards and suddenly it's 4th and 3 and you're saying, whoa, I didn't know they were going for it on 4th down, like in the Colts game? Yeah. Yes, that's a scenario that does happen. But the formula works, for the most part. And I'm much more willing to go with this formula than the previous formulas we've seen from previous schemes.
Yeah. I'm with you on that. Zach, what have you seen out of Pettine and his recent adjustments that will give you confidence or opposite towards his future with the Packers?
Well, it's not so much Pettine. I mean, I don't think they've done anything different necessarily. You're just getting these individual jumps from guys. You've seen Preston Smith start playing better. You've seen the defensive line collectively start playing better. I mean, their pass rush has improved. The safeties especially have improved. I mean, that's been the most notable jump of the entire defense. Adrian Amos and Darnell Savage. And when your safeties start playing better, everything in front of you starts playing better. And I've said that for a couple of years now. I mean, when you have a formidable safety duo back there, then I think everything just kind of like comes together. So, as far as like the scheme goes, it's true. And I that's why I've been kind of like so reluctant to kind of criticize, what the Packers are doing defensively this season, because when I see them playing off, I don't necessarily know why they're doing that. I'm not going to like critique something that I don't necessarily understand. And it's so funny when I log on to Twitter and I see people tweeting like, I can guess the play call. I can guess the defensive play call. This is so predictable. I can guess this. And that. Like, I promise you can't. I promise you have no idea what the hell you're talking about. What kind of shit you're spewing on timeline right now. You have no idea what you're saying. Like, I don't get it sometimes. So, and like Ben noted as well, their whole thing, and like the positional coaches have noted multiple times, they allow a completion in front of him and they swarm to the ball. That's their thing. That's what they do. And that's sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you get outclassed by the other team. I mean, the other team gets paid too. That's a thing. So that's
Zach, I could find you plays around the league on 3rd and floor playing cover 1 press man and getting beat on a deep fade for a 40-yard touchdown. And their fan base is saying, why are we playing cover 1 press man on 3rd and short and medium there and giving up a big explosive play? Just understanding every defense has vulnerabilities. Offenses get paid, coaches get paid a lot of money to find those vulnerabilities and to attack them. And, even looking back at last year, Amos, first year in Pet and Scheme, Savage, a rookie. It's not easy. It's not easy to play safety in the NFL. So just to see them in year 2, playing faster, playing more comfortable with a lot of moving parts in front of them. Obviously, a different voice calling the plays in the huddle, from Martinez to Kirksey to Barnes to Martin and whoever else is at linebacker this year. Raven Green's been in and out of the lineup. So there's been some moving parts in that second level, the defense, the middle of the defense there. Just takes time to get comfortable and time for everybody to get acquainted.
And like we talked about earlier, it's really hard to play defense nowadays with how offenses are just getting better and better, and they're finding new ways to combat what the defense is showing them. I mean, it's hard to defend.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to show you right now our final film breakdown play. This was, I believe, a 19-yard gain to Robert Tonyan in the flat. Can't believe I just said Tonyan. I've officially given in to the peer pressure. I was going to stick with Tonyan because – But I got to go with Tonyan now because it's just too much. He's getting too good. I need to give him the respect he deserves. But let's watch this, and we'll break it down a bit slower after this. But watch Tavon Austin and bringing this motion, what it does to the defense. Everyone's flowing left. Tonyan is so wide open. And again, we'll slow it down in a second. So wide open, big gain, great play. And that's something we didn't see a lot of out of McCarthy. Here we go. Here's Tonyan moving across the formation. No one is near him.
And it's all built off of the foundational zone stretch scheme with the split zone action. So he looks like he's coming across the formation to cut the backside end, as they do quite often, and then leaks into the flat on a little 3-level stretch flood concept, which is always a low to high read. If the flat is wide open, you take that right away for the free money.
Yeah, so here we're going to just slow it down a bit. And watch these linebackers and watch what the motion does to this defense. Okay, slowing it down. Now it's going to pause right about here. I mean, these guys are so flowing in the wrong direction while Tonyan is running the other way. They have no chance of stopping it. There's just simply no way. When you have Tavon Austin moving, you get the play action, you get the bootleg, and boom, leads to a nearly.
But Eli, up to that point, what has been their priority, just like was the Packers' priority?
Yeah, to stop
the run, and they didn't do it as well as we did. So maybe when the offense was on the field, Vrabel was up their butt saying, "Stop the run, stop the run, stop the run." Next drive, what happens? Too aggressive to the run, play action out the back door. That's the cat and mouse of the floor. And when things are working on first down, even as a viewer, I have no idea what's coming on a down-to-down basis, and it's so much fun. I could not imagine being a second-level defender with all the motions and moving parts and just not knowing how you're being attacked on a down-to-down basis. It almost gives me a little bit of angst watching on the couch, like you don't know what is coming next, and that's such an exciting proposition.
Watching McCarthy, it always felt like you could predict the next play. If it was 2nd and 10, run up the middle, gain of 1 or 2, probably maybe even a loss. But this offense, it really is, they're so creative. You really don't know what's coming next. And, I mean, as much as we would all love to talk about that dominant win over the Titans, we have an even bigger game coming up next week that we got to preview as we come up on time here. We have Bears-Packers Soldier Field, Bears playoff life on the line, number 1 seed on the line for the Packers. So let's just first start off with just your initial thoughts moving into the game. Zach, why don't you kick us off? What you're looking for? Obviously, the Bears have been playing better as of late, but I will say the caveat to that was the competition they faced, especially on the defensive side of the ball. But what do you see out of this Bears defense, Bears team in general, that maybe changed over the last month?
Well, not necessarily what's changed over the last month, but I'll go back to that first meeting with the Packers. They still have a really good linebacker duo right there, and they're also going to have Akeem Hicks back, which he didn't practice today. I think he has an illness, but I'm assuming he's still going to suit up on Sunday. But either way, that's still a huge reinforcement to the defensive line, and that could still impact what the Packers want to do in the running game. So they might not be able to get away with some of the same things that they were able to get away with against Titans, and people may need to temper their expectations a little bit coming off a game when they had 230 something rushing yards, whatever the number was. But
yeah,
I still like the Packers' chances here going into Chicago. I mean, it's hard not to, but at the same time, it's still a good defense. I don't care what people want to say about the Bears. I know it's going to be Mitchell Trubisky. I know that the jokes are just going to be flying. I get it, but still, it's a good defense. Those are 2 really good linebackers in there. And, Aaron Rodgers, he's going to have to be on point. They may take away the running game. As good as it's been, that may be a point of weakness.
But on that point, the Bears have been shockingly bad at creating pressures and sacks on quarterbacks. So if they were to focus on the run game, I'm not overly concerned about Rodgers throwing against them because he should have time in the pocket. Jalen Johnson's been hurt. Buster Skrine has been hurt. Not that Buster Skrine is, in my opinion, very good. I actually think he's quite the liability for the defense. But yeah, I mean, if they try to attack the run, I think the Packers could beat them in the pass.
And they have Corey Linsley back. He returned against the Titans. Their offensive line, their whole starting 5. I mean, assuming what happens with Rick Wagner, I don't know what their plans are right now, or whether they're going to move Billy Turner back to right tackle for the playoff run, whatever happens. But either way, their preferred starters are in place right now, so everything's going to be kind of fortified up front. So if Aaron Rodgers needs a protection, he's going to get it. I mean, I want to go back to that. No, don't actually go back to it, but I want to go back to that touchdown. The third touchdown to Devontae Adams. He had all the time back in the world, back there in the pocket for Adams to break away from the double team. So if he needs the protection, he can get it.
Yeah,
even against that porous pass rush,
Yeah, so Ben, me and Zach have constantly been having this back and forth discussion about Linsley and whether or not he should be brought back. And in the beginning, it was like Elton Jenkins is great at center. We got some good guards. Maybe we don't need him. And then the Panther game happened, and Lucas Patrick kind of got blown up at left guard. Linsley comes in, has another great performance. So, Ben, in your estimation, do you think, I mean, when you're looking at, Aaron Jones and Corey Linsley as potential free agents, where do you prioritize that?
Aaron Jones, obviously, a much higher priority in my opinion. We already got Bakhtiari sealed up. Linsley's a good player. Obviously, some injuries here and there. Obviously, excels at quickness off the ball. Not the most powerful guy. If I were to look at the next center down the road, I would probably prefer Lucas Patrick to be center and only center. I think that's his best suited position. I wouldn't want Elton Jenkins to be the center of the future. I think he could do more for the team at either of the guard spots. But I think Linsley, I'd let him kind of test the free agent waters and see what type of deals are out there. And if we get him to come back on a fair kind of hometown discount, I would love to have him back.
Yeah, I'm the same with you. I've always loved Linsley. I think he's just been solid, but obviously with the money situation and salary cap for the Packers, we got Mama Westendorf back watching the show. Thank you. Go cook. You have to go cook dinner. Well, you got your priorities. Have a great night. Thank you for watching. We appreciate it. But yeah, back to Linsley. I would love to see him back, but obviously for the right price. And now real quick, just looking at this Packer game against the Bears, obviously, again, huge game, Soldier Field. So let's just do a couple quick score predictions. Ben, you can kick us off how you see this game going down.
I think it's going to be an interesting game. I'm not sure, who's going to finish the whole game for the Packers. I think it'd be a 34-21 type of game. There's still some players, for lack of better words, that I'm scared of on the Bears. I'm scared of Allen Robinson. I'm scared of Khalil Mack. They have veteran presence at, a lot of spots, whether it's Kyle Fuller or, Danny Trevathan, Robert Quinn. We all like Roquan Smith. David Montgomery's been playing so much better lately. They have issues on their offensive line. And I think that's where we really have the advantage against them. So I worry about Mitchell Trubisky's ability to stay upright for the most part. He has played better of late. Kind of interesting Heckle and Jide season with the 6-game losing streak, then a 3-game winning streak. And I have no idea what to make of the Bears, but don't let these inferior teams sneak up on you. Handle your business, beat the teams you're supposed to beat. But they do have players that can hurt you. So don't sleep on them. It's a division game. It's at Soldier Field. Handle your business in the first half, and hopefully you can start emptying the bench.
Yeah, I would love to see that. How about you, Zach?
I'm going with 31-23. I mean, I'm if yeah,
one-score game. Interesting.
What was that?
A one-score game. Okay.
Yeah, I think they're actually, they're riding high. Their morale is riding high right now. Like you said, they got that 3-game win streak. And, I think right now it's just, it's hard to say, it's really hard to kind of pinpoint how these guys are going to perform. It's the Bears. It's such a weird team to kind of like gauge, I don't, with Mitchell Trubisky and going against a defense that the past defense has been kind of shaky this season, but granted they've turned around the last couple of weeks, but it's just, I really, I don't know.
They're rabid. They're desperate. Don't trust them. They're like that roadkill. It's kind of still twitching. Stay away. You don't know what they're capable of out there. They can sneak up on you and upset anybody. So make sure you finish them off.
That's the thing. Like if, step on the throat, finish them off. Maybe the Packers leave their starters in the whole game. I don't know, but the number 1 seed is on the line. Home field advantage is something Aaron Rodgers has really wanted. Never had a home NFC Championship game, so this is it's going to be big. And I think the Bears playing for their playoff lives, coming on a 3-game win streak, this is going to be big for them too. So they're all going to be firing on all cylinders, and their offensive line being a weak point as well. I think the pass rush really needs to be on point as well, like they have been last 4 or 5 games.
Yeah, I think Pettine has been dialing up some more blitzes, but also just one-on-ones have been working better. Rashawn Gary's progression's obviously been a huge part of that. He's been just phenomenal. So happy to see him, progress in year 2 because, like Ben said when we talked about Devontae, people love to label people's busts the minute they don't see immediate production. And it's like, this is the NFL. This isn't high school football, Pop Warner. It's going to take some time to get to that level. And Gary's showing that he's getting to that level. But before we wrap up the show,
I do a lot of work with the Eagles as well. Just want to say really quick. And there's so many parallels. Brandon Graham was like the same guy. They wanted to write him off early on. Nelson Aguilar, similar issues to Devontae Adams early on with his drops and his focus and his confidence. Sometimes a little patience with these young players will really go a long way.
Yeah, look, unfortunately, social media is the opposite of where you're going to find patience out of fans. But
hey, one last question for you guys. I don't get to chat too much with you. You don't get to elaborate at all, okay? Really quick, how many? Or yes or no here. Does Jordan Love ever take a snap for the Green Bay Packers? Zach, go ahead.
Just a yes or no?
Yep.
Oof. I'm going to say no.
Eli?
Is he frozen?
He might be thinking, but he looks frozen.
Oh, that's wow! Great time. See, it was such a good question. It just sent him into a frozen state.
I think he's in the snowstorm right now. Is going to plead the 5th here, but this thing is an interesting thought. In envisioning how he would ever kind of be under center, and there's probably 3 scenarios. Aaron Rodgers stinks. Aaron Rodgers gets hurt. Aaron Rodgers leaves. With this contract. So,
all right, sorry. What was the question? I heard the beginning, yes or no, but what was the question?
So I was just saying, I want to know, yes or no, does Jordan Love ever take a snap for the Green Bay Packers? Zach had already said no, and then I just said, envision a scenario in which he does play for the Packers, and there's really only 3 scenarios. Aaron Rodgers stinks, Aaron Rodgers gets hurt, Aaron Rodgers plays out his contract, and they don't renew that. So with the way things have gone in 2020 and the trajectory of the team and Rodgers, can you envision a scenario where Jordan Love ever plays quarterback for the Green Bay Packers?
The way it is today, barring injury, fingers crossed, I just don't see it. I mean, this team, you can say what you want about the pick. They took a shot. They think they had a quarterback of the future, but they're also smart and they see what Aaron Rodgers is. No team is going to say, bye, Aaron Rodgers. We think we have something behind you. Favre was a different situation. He didn't play to the level of Rodgers. Every year with him was drama, retirement, not retirement. And straight up, he did retire. And you know what? When the team made that change, they made the change.
And don't forget, Eli, when we made that pick, we also went 4-12, fired Mike Shermer, and have not been last in the division since that year. So things didn't really go well for that short-term future with that double dip at quarterback.
Exactly. And, I was watching Sunday night's game, and I got to start putting out weekly over-unders on how many times the name Jordan Love has to be brought up by the broadcasters, because it's like, it has not been a storyline. Just like last year, the LaFleur-Rodgers relationship, it's not been a storyline. They were great together. Jordan Love hasn't put on a jersey yet. He's been sitting in sweats on the sidelines, and people just, they want to make that drama and get those clicks. But yeah, I think the way Rodgers looks right now, I don't see him slowing down anytime soon. And just like I was saying before we wrap it up, can we all agree that man right there wrapped up the MVP on Sunday night? In my opinion, I think it's undoubtedly him. Ben, how about you?
Yeah, I'm failing to find anybody else to put in that spot, outside of the Patrick Mahomes and the other low-hanging fruit around the league. I would be hard placed to find anybody else with the season Aaron Rodgers has been playing. And just another reflection of the Eagles that I do a lot of work with. Similar scenario, took a double dip quarterback with Jalen Hurts in the second round. Envision a scenario that Jalen Hurts plays for the Eagles. Either Carson Wentz stinks, Carson Wentz gets hurt. He already has a $100 million contract, so he's not leaving. It was one of the two. Carson Wentz stunk this year. So it's, you almost are needing failure and turmoil for the draft pick to eventually, come to fruition there, which is an interesting kind of thought there. But Aaron Rodgers, MVP, I don't see how it could go any other way.
Zach?
No, I'm with you guys. And plus, Patrick Mahomes, he's not playing the season finale. So I mean, there you go. Yeah, I mean, it's just another opportunity for him. I mean, he's already leading in pretty much every statistical category except like passing yards and completion. So I mean,
Rodgers right now, real quick, stat that he may be the first quarterback in NFL history to finish a season with a 70% completion percentage, 45 plus touchdowns, and 5 or less picks. That's not even human.
Yeah. This is a formula and a scheme for him to do this until he's 44, 45 years old.
Right?
This is the best thing and the best scenario for Packers fans to say, less scrambles, less improvisation, less putting himself in harm's way, more trusting the weapons around him. He could do this for another 5, 6, 7, 8 years, in my opinion. Yeah. I don't see why he couldn't.
See, that's what bothers me. People talk about Brady and Breeze, and they've reached into their 40s, and it's like no one bats an eye that Tom Brady's his age, and he's going to continue playing.
How come the Bucs didn't take a quarterback in the first round? How come the Colts didn't take a first-round quarterback to replace Phillip Rivers? How come the Steelers didn't to replace Big Ben? There's aging quarterbacks all over the league, but the Packers are like, whoa, we have a 37-year-old. We got to think about the future.
Exactly.
37. You could win now, surround your aging quarterback with weapons, and ride off into the sunset of the mid-40s like the rest of these guys.
He takes incredible care of his body. So there's and he constantly notes how he wants to play into his 40s. Always says that in him. He wants to finish his career in Green Bay. Who knows if that's going to happen now? But I mean, now the possibility of what happened to Jimmy Garoppolo, that's probably what's going to happen to Jordan Love. And I promise you, in 2-3 years, if that does happen, nobody is going to look back and say, oh my God, we wasted that first round pick in 2020. Oh my God. No one's going to care. I promise you. Especially if the Packers win a Super Bowl or 2, who knows? Or if Rodgers wins an MVP or 2, who knows?
Yeah, but I mean, exactly what I was saying on the Split Division podcast the other night. If the team has to eat a wasted first round pick to keep one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, deal with it, okay? We'll get over that you messed up on a pick, but don't move on from someone just to justify a pick that may have gotten a lot of scrutiny when it happened. But real quick, just before we head out, I want to number one again thank Ben for coming on. I know we probably went a bit longer than I said we would, but it was just a lot of fun to talk football with you. And before we head out, just let all the listeners know where they could find your work on social media and anywhere else.
Yeah, you guys know you can follow me over on Twitter at @BenFennell_NFL, weekly film room breakdowns over at The Athletic Wisconsin, typically coming out on Wednesdays. And we'll be hopping over to NFL Films in a couple of weeks here to start my off-season content, Senior Bowl, Combine, Draft, helping out Daniel Jeremiah with all his research and video. Not sure about when the Combine and the Draft yet, but I know the Senior Bowl is happening, so we'll be out there in Mobile, Alabama in a couple of weeks, and the draft is right around the corner. I'm pretty much in Draft World 365 in combination with my Packers stuff, working a little bit for the Eagles media department as well. So, yeah, a lot of fun. Exciting that we're already here at the end of 2020 into the playoffs. So let's see what the Packers can do with it.
Yeah, and so you can follow Ben at @BenFennell_NFL. And as always, you can follow Zach at It's Zachariah J. You can follow me at Book of Eli_NFL. Of course, make sure to follow Game On Wisconsin at Game On WI. Everyone who tuned in, we appreciate it. We'll see you next week, hopefully with that 1 seed with a bye, and even more hopefully with the Bears heading home to watch the playoffs from their couches, because that'll be fun.
Make sure you give Lambeau LeBeau a shout out right there in the comments.
Well, Lambeau LeBeau, look, you know what? A guy who's been there every single week following along. Lambeau LeBeau, you got to go and give him a follow as well. But everyone, again, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week. And go Pack, go, everybody. Let's hope we end the Bears season swiftly and brutally on Sunday. We'll see you.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, everyone. Enjoy. Hope you all have good holidays and have a happy New Year. And yeah, New Year's resolutions will probably last a week, but pretend that will work. And we'll see you after those New Year's resolutions are already given up next Wednesday. Have a great weekend, everybody.